Welcome to Alexandrians with Dani Karim, where I interview authors, both living and dead ones, through the power of AI. Today's guest is Nathan Kievman, an author, serial entrepreneur, and founder and CEO of Affinity Solutions and My Deep Trust AI. He is one of the world-leading experts in securing and maintaining ultra-high impact executive relationships. Nathan has helped CEOs secure over 100,000 high-level meetings over the course of his career, and he is the author of Engage Executives and the pioneer of what he calls the trust infrastructure, a new category designed to help leaders build authority, credibility, and get influential leaders to make referrals for you. In our conversation, we explore the lessons he learned from his near-death experience, the psychology of earning trust at the highest level of the game, how to think and speak like an executive, and what it truly takes to gain meetings with people like Elon Musk and other world leaders. Please enjoy this conversation, and if it speaks to your heart, share it with other Alexandrian spirits. Nate, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for making room for this.
For sure, buddy. Thank you for having me.
My very first question for you would be, what was the first hour where it manifested that you had something entrepreneurial in your blood or in your genes, so to say?
Um, I wasn't raised as an entrepreneur. I was I didn't have entrepreneurs in my family, so to say, that I was aware of. I mean, there's entrepreneurial spirit for sure in my mother, but all in all, I was a student. I wanted to be a general manager for a baseball team, like we just talked about with Moneyball, right? That was my aspiration. I went through school and I had a handful of things that happened in my life. I had an out of body death experience at 16. So I was on this dual path of spiritual seeking and sports achievement. And all I ever wanted to be was a baseball player. From the time I could remember throwing a ball and enjoying that sport, I was okay at it, but I wasn't divinely guided into that sport. So I was always working at it and I had some skills and I ended up along the way realizing where my true talent sat in the scheme of the baseball economy and world. And so I ended up going to grad school, and in that, after transferring to a small school out of junior college, I did junior college out in California. I moved into a small school out in St. Louis called Principia College, and then when I was done with that, I had kind of two directions I could go in my life. I could have gone and become a chaplain at Boston College, or I could have been I could have pursued my path for the general manager opportunity that I was really excited about, which I ended up following that path. And I got into a great sports administrative school called Ohio University, and one of the top master's programs in the world for that category. And I got a business degree and a sports degree from the masters from that school. And afterwards, I realized I have all this education and no experience. So I got a couple opportunities to be a scout for the Dodgers as what's called a bird dog scout. It's a non-paid like regional role, and I got that shortly after moving back to California for a little bit. And while I was out there, I love people. I loved interacting with people, but I was just hustling to find a way to make money. And a buddy of mine from my master's program was like, "Hey, you want to go start a business with me?" I'm like, "Well, what do you want to do?" He's like, "Well, let's start a mortgage company." It's like, that sounds fun. Sure. So I moved to Utah where he lived, and with my soon-to-be wife who was traveling the country with me, and we started over in Utah for a few years. And that was my first take on what being an entrepreneur was, which is totally not what people think, right? It's like it's a grind. You work 10 times harder than you would in a job, and you don't get paid for it. So, so it was like, wow, okay, this is not what I thought entrepreneurship would be, but hey, here we are. So that kind of fell apart after about 6 months because you still got to put food on the table. And so I started my practice in real estate investing and becoming like a lender and a loan officer and so forth for a few years while I was trying to figure out who I wanted to be when I grew up.
What was the most important dollar you ever made? Or meaningful dollar, so to say?
Oh, wow, that's a hard question right there. Um, What's the most meaningful dollar I ever made? There's a lot of big dollars that I've made. Over the years, after that experience in the real estate space, I kind of transitioned in 2008 as the market crashed. I spent 2 years learning how executives interact with the web for 2 years, and I started a company called Link Strategies, and it was a company's aim was how do I link professionals at the highest level? And what I realized was, the most exciting thing to me was helping other people have a conversation with someone they never thought they could have one with. And then it turns into something magical. So like it's not really the big companies. I've supported and worked for clients like BlackRock and NASDAQ and IBM and Microsoft and big multi-billion dollar companies, but those aren't the ones that stand out. The ones that stand out are the ones that were like actually it's this company. It's a particular company. They're in the consulting space and they're about $500,000 a year in revenue. And we ran our program for them, but more importantly, we helped them understand how to reposition their value to the market so that they could speak the language of executives. And within 1 year, they became a $3 million business. That like transformed their lives. And that was like that touched me more than the 1,800 meetings I set for NASDAQ. Like big deal. Like right, like in that's like I'm helping the big guys. What really was fun for me was finding those small companies and giving them and helping them see a path to a future that they didn't see was possible, and then helping them make that a reality. That was such a gift for me in my soul. That's what I was here for.
For me, this is one of those moments, to be honest, because for me, I stumbled into podcasting because my university didn't quite live up to the romantic ideas that I have of what an educational institution in the psychological sector should provide. So I couldn't even speak English. But the reason why I started to teach myself English, because I saw all these great people with knowledge about the human nature who lived in the United States and thought, and I just started to write some of my heroes and bad emails, like bad emails. But they answered. And I remembered, like, for instance, I once interviewed a guy called Dr. Jeffrey Kotler. He wrote like 140 books about psychotherapy. He's widely regarded as the best therapist in the world. And I didn't have a studio, so I had to interview him from my toilet. But I just realized the fact that like one of those conversations has an identity altering experience to you. And you kind of fool yourself, like the person talks to you. Maybe it's my peer. I just wasn't being informed about this. What was the person who personally for you altered your idea of what's possible for you, Nate, so to say, like an identity breaker, or just somebody who had gave you the permission to dream big and reach out to these people? Because it seems most people have this cage around them where they say like, I can't reach out to the big guys because they will never speak to me, which is this strange thing. But there was the story I think about the owner of the Lakers who never got any calls because everybody believed he wouldn't pick up the phone anyway. So it's this thing. Who was somebody for you who opened up the keys to your beliefs in regards to nobody is out of reach, so to say?
Hmm. That's such a great question. Wow. Well, I had some real formative years. So coming out of the real estate space, I had, uh, in 2008, it was a big crash and it was a hard time for everybody in the real estate world. And so I spent my last dollars on this big event for Jay Abraham. And Jay Abraham is one of the world's top marketing gurus for those that don't know who he is. And I was like, man, I gotta be in this guy's presence and learn from him because how he looks at the world and how he thinks about business, it's like, wow, it's like exponential growth and like all these different philosophies that he taught. And I mean, if you guys don't know, like the foundations of Tony Robbins' business mastery class is Jay Abraham's work called, exponential growth models. And that's actually one of his core teachings. And so I was learning this concept of joint venture marketing from him for about a year in this off on the side course, and from his partner at the time, Spike Humer, who was his operating officer. And so I went through this 12-month program on joint venture strategy, and it was really just that program taught me how to think differently, think asymmetrically, as Jay would put it. And how do you say, okay, if you're trying to get to this end goal, there's probably a lot of ways to get there, but the world would say you have to get capital to get there. And then I'd couple that with him saying, well, there's probably a lot of ways around that. And so like there's a story that he shared that really resonated to me, and it was about Icy Hot and Icy Hot, the brand. For those who know, it's like a vapor stuff that you put on yourself, and was part of this building that Jay was buying, and they had bankrupted the whole thing, and he was just buying the building, and Icy Hot was just part of the deal. And so he got to see all the financials of the business, and he saw that those that bought kept the product for 9 months on average, paying members. So he took that one stat and he went to every radio station in the country and said, "Hey, I'll give you and pay for shipping the first purchase that you sell. So you get to keep 100% of the profit or of the revenue of the sale on the first deal. And I'll pay for the shipping to distribute. So it's just all yours." And you got like almost every radio station in the country to promote this thing, built it to a $9 million business in less than 9 months. And that's like asymmetrical thinking. No cost to delivery other than what he was willing to upfront for shipping out the first cost as a cost of acquisition. And what a great deal that was for him. So that's like the way that to think. And so I launched my whole LinkedIn book and my LinkedIn strategies company on the same philosophy, which was really impactful for my career and the direction I went. And I'd also say that coupled with that is a gentleman named John Assaraf. For those that don't know John's the guy from the movie The Secret. If you ever watched that movie from way back, if you haven't, go watch it. It's on the law of attraction. He's the guy that talks about the vision board in the White House and all that stuff. That's John. So John built a billion-dollar company in 9 months with a couple of partners. And he had several successful businesses. And I went to a program that he was teaching, and he said, what is it that money gets you? And then think about the thing that money gets you, and what's the other ways you can partner to get those things? Similar experience to what I learned from Jay. Those two things were extraordinary to me. So I'll give you why I've applied that to my tech company now called My Deep Trust AI, right? Before we launched the company, right, as we were launching the company, we have a board of advisory group of 22 people. I've got 12 committed senior level executives that are running other companies, fully committed to my company with 15 exits behind them, 94 products taken to market, $25 billion of revenue sold to enterprise companies, all on my executive team, and a full operating team of 9 people. And I only raised $200,000 to get all that, right? So think that I didn't need the money to get those things. None of those people are being paid. All right, at the moment, they will get paid eventually, but they aren't today. And they all understand that if it doesn't work and we don't all win together, then nobody gets paid anyway. So what it is, it's really about alignment of value, enrollment, and strategy to get the things that you want. And so not being scared of applying that strategy and thinking creatively. Like I found myself in a little bit of a loop, and I just wanted to kick myself this week because I've been focused on raising money instead of achieving the thing that the money would have got me if I had refocused it to the same idea. So I kind of got off track. And so thank you for the question, because it's something that a couple of weeks ago I recognized, and I started a huge initiative to say, okay, how can I still get the money without having it? And now what I'm working on is something extraordinary. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to raise my full $5 million by getting verbal commitments that cross each other. So like this person's conditional on that person's conditional on this person. They both say yes, right? That kind of a thing. So people are willing to commit. So for example, if I want to raise money, I'm raising $5 million for our tech firm. If I say to the market, and I say, I have a particular multi-billionaire that I'm in conversations with, right? So if I say to another ultra wealthy individual or family office, hey, if I get this super celebrity billionaire to commit to $1 million or more of investment with me, would you be willing to be my lead investor at 2.5 million, right? And I don't have this commitment. I haven't even talked to this person about that yet. But if I go get them to say, yeah, if you had him on, I would 100% be your front lead. No doubt. So then I get a letter from them. And then I just take that letter and I go back over to my relationship that I have with the other guy. I say, hey, I got a $2.5 million lead, but they're conditional that you get involved, right? Well, they're going to put the money up front. They take the risk. They've already done our due diligence. Would you be willing to come in with 1 million? Then I do that to another person for the last bit. That's 3.5. So now I need another 1.5 from somebody else. Hey, I've got these two commitments. Will you come in? They're committed, just to finish off the round, and then we're done, right? So I thought of that this morning. I will try to finish that this week, right? And I've already started those conversations. So that's how leverage works, and that's the asymmetrical thinking that I've learned from Jay Abraham and John Assaraf.
I love this. One of my favorite quotes, it's probably butchered. It wasn't actually from him, but it's from Sun Tzu, that it's like, there is an intelligent way to eat a frog. I just haven't encountered it. And one of the things, the thought that occasionally gives me hope when I'm feeling despair is the fact that there is a solution on how to play this, and that history is full of weird examples. I remember, for instance, I think it was Caesar who won a war by borrowing an army from like some great king in Africa. So it's like yeah, like even the fact that like,
Hey,
well, I don't have the soldiers, but he has them, so maybe he can borrow them to me. It's like, if you would coin a phrase on how to describe this openness of mind and give some advice for somebody where it's, how to put it? I'm an early stage founder right now, and I'm getting a lot of punch in the face from a lot of different directions in a way, you know. And but it's so difficult, I feel, when you get a lot of negative pain, to still have reach out and try these grand things and have the same kind of naivety about striving as somebody who doesn't know what's happening for now. I'm not sure if my English is betraying me right now, but do you know
no,
what I
no, this
mean?
is really good. I want to share a story with you about that, Danielle. Like, think about this. For those of you that are listening, that are founders or raising capital, I mean, all right, we Anthropic's in the news pretty heavy today, right? So, and do you know that 5 years ago they're walking down the strip in Silicon Valley, basically pitching their wares. They pitched to 22 of the biggest VCs in the market, and they got no's from the first 21, and then a partial yes, like a little bit of a yes from 22. Think of that, 21 no's. It's a 4%, 4.5% close rate, for a little bit of what you wanted. And they're now what, $380 billion in value 5 years later? How bad are those 21 people punching themselves in the face for not saying yes? They don't know, right? Everybody, like, you have to understand, the investment world doesn't know. It's a guessing game for them. They think they know. They think they know, but that's an example of why we know they don't know. So you don't need to put your value as a company on anybody else. What you need to understand is it valuable in the market? Is the market going to take it? And that's why VCs, they say they don't do it, but they say they invest in the founder, right? Well, if the Anthropic founder was truly known in his capability and what he was capable of doing, they would have invested if that was true, right? So they really are looking at business models and other things, and flip a coin if they're going to say yes. Don't take your wealth or your value. I was in a very, like, 2 days ago, I was like, I'm done with investment. I don't even want to raise money. Forget about it. I'm over raising money. And we had a little chat about it, right, Dana? And I'm like, why? Because they don't see what I see. But that's what makes us founders. We see the impossible and we see the paths to getting there. That's why we're in the space we're in. We're creating from nothing. We're the creators of the universe, right? We're creating the future. And you're amazing. And by the way, for each of us out there, don't be despaired, because without you, the universe isn't complete. Like, that's the truth. There's no infinite universe without you. He is now no longer infinite, right? The truth of the matter is that whatever we're creating is here for us to learn and grow from. So if you're in that journey, yes, it's a game of de-risking. But I just got this beautiful gift from a dear friend of mine, and he asked me a couple nights ago. This is only 2 nights, maybe it was last. It might have been last night, 2 nights ago, whatever. He said, Nate, have you, like, designed your ideal investor? So now I teach growth strategy to over 400 companies. Okay, I have generated over 100,000 sales meetings for some of the best, coolest companies in the world. And for the smallest companies in the world to get to the best companies in the world, I set meetings with Elon Musk and Tim Cook and 80% of the Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies we have set meetings for our clients for over the past 15 years. And the first thing that you always do is you have to know your customer. You have to know your ICP, your ideal client profile. And in the investment space, I never even thought of it. It's the same process, same exact as a sales process. Just you're raising capital instead of selling a solution. I was like, oh my God. I was like, Peter, I can't believe I have not done this exercise. Thank you for the gift of reminding me. And then I proceeded to spend the rest of the evening designing out my perfect buyer, right? And then what happened was the clarity I just shared with you a minute ago. I got introduced a month ago to a multi-billionaire. Everybody knows his name. Not sharing it here, but we're in email conversation. Now I don't have anything to entice him to talk further for at the moment. So I was working on what do I do? And then when I did this research, that guy's name came up number 2 on my list of ideals for 3 different categories. I was like, oh, well, that's a sign for me. That's a sign, right? And then another person who I had met while I was out in Davos and Liechtenstein and this trip that I just took out to Europe was I met another multi-billionaire in the impact space, and he was on my list. I'm like, what is going on? This is unsolicited AI research, right? And they don't. So I was like, okay. So now I'm putting all the pieces together. I'm like, oh, well, this is a conditional ask. If this, then that. If this person does that, would you do this? If that person does that, will you do this? Nobody has to commit until everybody's committed. It's a beautiful thing. I started podcasting the same way, Daniel. Podcasting. So my first interview on podcast was a multi-billionaire in a category, and I borrowed everything. I literally started from zero. I borrowed another person's audience. I borrowed another person's distribution, and then I had like a couple of ways to do connecting and engaging. And so I had one person's distribution was a huge podcast network that was a friend of mine, and the other person had 100,000 people on their list. And so I went to both of them. I said, "Hey, if I interview a billionaire, would you share the interview with your audience?" One said yes. Then I said to the other one, I said, "Would you share this on your podcast?" He said, "Oh yeah, I'd totally do that. That'd be awesome." Who's the billionaire? And I shared it. Like, "Oh yeah, that'd be amazing." So then I went to the billionaire and said, "Hey, I've got 100,000 distribution and a full podcast distribution on top of that. Would you be open to doing an interview?" He's like, "Yeah, that'd be amazing. Sure." And so from absolutely scratch, my first podcast interview was with a billionaire, and then that set me off. And now I was interviewing C-suites from every major brand in the market after that, and it was some stupid name like Business Success Unlimited. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. It was my first foray or like kind of roll into the internet. I didn't even know what a website was at the time. So, but it's the concept of leverage access. Yeah.
Something strange also happens where it's so easy to underestimate as a founder, but the very moment you were the person who acts in complete congruence with your courage, humans are reacting to it, and the game changes in a strange way. And I think we haven't quite grasped what that is, but it's one of my favorite words is the word inspired, and I think it comes more from the word origin in spirit in a way. And it's like whenever you harvest virtues, it's almost as if you're in a harmony, whatever divine there is about consciousness, and people can spot that, and they will make a path for you to work through. You have a fascinating origin story also. Could you tell the story of your near-death experience and what you've learned from it in a way? Because I think that's something where that I find very interesting is that you're like a walker of different worlds, I feel, where
Thank you. Yeah.
you can play with, you can talk to founders, talk to VCs, but there's also where at least your toes have graphed the afterlife, so to say. So what was that story like, and what did you bring back from this experience for us?
Mm. So at 16, like, remember when you were 16, kind of screwing around. You don't really know what reality's like yet. I'm driving my car, my first car in Northern California, and um, my tire falls off. I hit a pole, I roll down a hill, and my car's on fire upside down, and I'm in it. And I'm watching from 50 feet above my car, looking down at the car with me in it. And in this experience, I remember a whole bunch of things happened prior to that that were like really astounding, that became astounding later. Because it was a Super Beetle, it was a small car. I'm a 6'2", I was a big guy. And, and the way that the car hit, like I really should have been paralyzed by all intents, if not dead. I rolled 70 feet down a pretty steep inclined hill, and the car landed upside down with the engine in the passenger seat, the tire wedged in the front window, and the license plate swinging from the license plate from the windshield wiper. And from above, I'm watching this scene of the car still, it on fire on the back, and I can see myself kind of in the driver's seat, like kind of falling down, like wedged into the rocks through my sunroof. And I'm observing it with no emotion, no reaction, no sound. Just I was in this perfect place of peace. Think of it as a silent movie, but I like to describe the place that I was observing from as a warm bath of love. I felt like I was literally in warmth all around me. And I felt this presence behind me. So I turned around, and all I could see in infinite directions from that side to that side was this wall of golden light with a white circle right behind me. And and what I recognized from that experience was the power of pull that that white tunnel had on me. It was really compelling to want to go into that and just kind of be done. But then what happened was a voice, God's voice, is how I described it. Came and had a conversation with me. It felt like forever, but it was very short window of in reality time. But it felt like I was talking for like 30 minutes with this voice. I don't remember any of the conversation until the very end, when the voice in a masculine energy said, "Do you want to stay or go?" And I said, "I want to stay. I have a purpose to live." As I was looking down at my body, and I looked back and forth a couple of times, and and the voice said, "That's right." And then I opened my eyes from my car. My vision and being from above told my body what to do. So I rolled onto my back in the car, pulled myself out of the car as paint dripped onto my. I was coming from a ball game, a baseball game. Paint dripped onto my jersey. It didn't burn my hands. I could smell smoke. I could hear it, the crackling of the fire, but I couldn't feel the heat. So I got out of the car, and from above, I told myself to walk this direction, and I walk away. As I walk away from the car, my visions merge, boom, into one. I crawl up this little hill. Some people were gathering by a house about 50 or so feet away, maybe a little further. I climb over their fence with their help, turn around, my car blows up. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I don't have no reaction. I'm stunned. I think I'm in shock. Um, I had a friend that was with me. He got thrown from the vehicle. His left leg got pulled out of the socket. He was screaming bloody murder. So I said, just take care of him. Take care of him. I'm sore on my neck. I chipped my tooth. I'm bleeding everywhere from some cuts around my eye. And then I pass out on their stairs. Next thing I know, I wake up and I'm in the hospital, and I've got like 100 people that I know, like all over the place. Like everybody's in the room. I got people waiting to come in, and they're like cycling in, wishing me well and everything. And I got coaches and family and friends and teachers and loved ones, and significant friends of mine, and people that I didn't even know were there, that I had touched in some way because of my graciousness. I was a junior in college, in high school, and I was pretty outgoing with people, and I always tried to see people in their God's image and likeness, and give them love. So they're giving it back to me. And during that experience, I remember thinking, life really is just about relationships, right? It really is. And that was over, and the doctors told me I had what's called a miracle break, a perfect C2 fracture on both sides of my spinal cord, and a millimeter from breaking through on the top and the bottom on both sides. They said it was the most perfect break they ever saw. They said, you must have been sitting up straight, which I did just before I made impact, as I said, oh God. And my impact must have been straight down on my head, because they said if you were bent either way, you would have severed your neck. And so they had to put a halo on me, which were out of. So I had to wait a week to get a halo literally screwed into my head. I actually think I actually have a picture of it right here, surprisingly. So you can see that. That's what they ended up putting on me. And they screw 4 screws into your head so you can't move. And And I had to wear that for what they said was 6 months to 9 months. And I just said, thanks, I'm not going to accept that though. And so I got out of the hospital finally and got to go home. And I worked with some spiritual teachers. And I guess I have to say one thing what happened. When they started to screw the holes in your head, they can't give you any anesthesia. So they rubbed ice on it and then started drilling holes. And you never heard somebody say the Lord's Prayer so many times in your life as I did in that moment. But then I left my body and I watched from above what was going on. And then at that point, I realized I can control pain. I can control my experience in the body by leaving the body and observing. And so I'd never taken medicine since. I had never relied on medicine before that, but never since either, since I was given that gift. So in that experience, I was given a couple of gifts, foresight and healing. And I kind of got scared of them. I ran from them for about 30 years. One of them, the healing gift, because it was extraordinary. And, but there's some really great takeaways that I got from it. One, that there is no transition. Like the transition is immediate. Like it's an awakening. It's not a death. So I don't look at death the same as most people. For me, death is an awakening, an opportunity. The Bible calls it like in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, is a sounding symbol. The corruptible will become incorrupted and the mortal will become immortal. That's the moment of transition. That's the great description of it for me. And I'm I've studied every world religion since. I've traveled to most cultures. I've studied the cultures, the people, the background, the stories, and I later came to a thesis that all world religions are here to teach us three things: our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with others, and our relationship with the divine. And all the books teach us the same things to have that evolution in our experience. They have their different ways of doing it, but that was my big takeaway. And so what that enabled me to do over life is, I don't have to have fear of death because I don't believe there is one. I don't have to have fear of ailment because I know that there's possible for the mind to overcome and transform that. I was healed in full within a month. The next X-rays they took, I was completely healed. They didn't believe it. They left it on for a few more weeks, and then I got my halo taken off within a couple of months, and I was playing sports the next day. So, pretty fun story.
Thanks for sharing that in some sense. Um, wow, that's a lot to take in. One of the things I'm fascinated by is I recently read a book called Walk with Me from Milton Erickson. Have you read it?
Mm.
It's an interesting. It's the founder of hypnotherapy, and there was this guy. He had a stroke, I think, and he spoke extremely slow in consequence, and became very transful in his being. And he was counseling this one woman in Milwaukee who was severely depressed, and he was meeting her at her house on the advice of a friend, so to say, and investigated the house. It was one of the things he was doing, like to inspect the living environment to infer the cause of ailment with a particular person. And one of the things that Milton Erickson did in this particular story was that she was completely depressed and isolated from her community. But in the basement, he saw some crosses and some magnolias as a flower. And he confronted her and said, "Oh, you're such a bad Christian. You keep all those beautiful flowers for yourself. Here's some homework exercise where her task was to make a list of all the people in the community whenever they have a baby, a marriage, or a birthday, to give them a magnolia as a gift. And when she died, there was a newspaper article, and hundreds of people came to her death to celebrate the Magnolia Queen of Milwaukee. And it was like one of those stories where I realized you and your lone rider bullshit is like, how many people have you touched? And that's like first time I've seen like you walking through life and realizing the importance of community. What is something you know about the importance of others that somebody who hasn't made this experience maybe taking for granted or hasn't arrived yet? Because there's a lot of bullshit beliefs, particularly in the founder circle, where you have to go social haters to build something for the world. You have to be by yourself, use other people where you can, become a private rather than profit. What is something you have to say for somebody who hasn't really understood the value of connection yet?
What a great question. You got some doozies today, buddy. I'm really impressed. Um, I'll tell you this. Um, hmm, Trust is the currency of growth. Okay, so trust is the currency of the future too. So we have a really weird world we're in right now, right? AI is automating roles and jobs and content, and what we trust is not now what we see or what we read is very hard to trust. And so with those founders that are kind of going the lone role, I have lots of faiths and beliefs, and I'm a student and near master's degree in biblical studies, so I'm very familiar with the Bible. And there's a saying in it where two or more are gathered, so am I. And what does that mean? So am I, right? It's like the presence of all intelligence, the presence of unlocking and tapping into something way beyond what you're capable of. And so if we believe we can do it on our own, then we don't really truly understand what we're made in, right? Like, um, 1 plus 1 is not equal to in the sense of creation. And so when you tap into another's idea so that you can co-create ideation in the creation of whatever it is you're creating, you're going to create way more together than you will on your own, right?
Hmm.
Additionally, let's just talk about it from like the practical world of resources. It de-risks the offer to market when more are involved. Why do I create a big board? So I'll explain a very simple example. So I'm in the middle of designing out our enterprise offering soon, right? Well, I would never just create it from my own mind. Why would I do that if I can create a council of my buyers, get them all to help me feature develop and value develop the tech so I'm not wasting my time and that they become my first users. That's community. That's creative. And it de-risks the investment and de-risks the product to market. It streamlines the go-to-market strategy. You have preemptive buyers already in play. Everything's good from that. There's nothing great. Now, let's say the alternate of that is you did it all on your own and you guessed and you thought you were right or you used AI to tell you what was right. And then you launch it to market and you were wrong. How much time did you waste? And then how much time do you waste pivoting till you get it out to market? That's like could be a year or two swing on something like that. Like that's crazy. So you de-risk speed to market, you de-risk your validation of your value to market. You everything about it doing it in community is better because it creates perspective. And I think from a human level, the biggest risk in our world are people that haven't traveled the world and been articulated in culture because they're siloed in their belief of what's real. Like if you haven't gone to a third world country and you live in America, like don't have a judgment on what reality looks like because you don't know, right? If you haven't been to some of these places in the world. All right. And so it gives you like community creates and creates perspective, but perspective creates, I think, a sense of humbleness, a sense of flexibility, a sense of, you know, willingness to listen and hear points of view. And I think that when you don't surround yourself in that, it creates isolationist beliefs and danger to our society and your own company's success.
I interviewed Norman Bacall recently. He had one of the biggest law firms in Canada and worked closely with, I think, the father of Justin Trudeau. I forgot what his name was. And I asked him, he worked with many world leaders, and the word that he used was the word worldliness in a way. Is that the job of a great executive is also to have been around the world and to have context on how to solve all these impossible problems. If you think of your own worldliness, what is a lesson that has now been helpful in your executive journey that you've collected, not inside of the book or the classroom, but in the world in an unexpected moment, so to say?
Mhm. A great quote by Socrates is the greatest thing that I knew is that I know nothing at all. I just love it. Right. I mean, traveling the world shows you what we don't know. Like if you've been to Peru and traveled to Machu Picchu, or seen the Great Pyramids, like I have in both cases, or you travel and see ancient cultures, or you go to see areas in South Africa or across the world, like you're like, or you seen Tikal in the Mayan ruins, like, oh my gosh, like we don't know what we don't know, right? And it creates such a level of for me, at least, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, it creates a level of appreciation and listening, like the capacity to listen, uh, because I know that I don't know, right? And the best gift a leader can have is to be a servant leader, right? A best gift the leader can have is to be humble in the sense that we don't know everything. And I think that the biggest danger for some leaders is they come across as knowing everything. And that I think that that world travels the perspective of cultures. When I was in college, I got to spend 3 weeks out in Israel doing archaeological digs and then visiting Egypt and kind of meeting the cultures. But one of my assignments was to observe the cultural differences between the Jews and the uh, Arabs, and it was interesting. It was really a great perspective, and my job was to write a paper from both points of view. So,
Mhm.
right, not one that was westernized, not one that was told to us by media, but one that I was observed, that I talked with people, that I touched in with their humanity. And I said, why do you think this way? Why do you think this way? What's going on? And it gives you a sense of objectivity that's like, man, it's like if everybody could have a point of view like this, like it's hard to hate people you meet, right? It's hard to hate people you meet that you know like because they're human now. And so I just think there's so much richness in that capacity. And unfortunately, it's just not, I think that, the media's job is trying to put fear in us so we don't have that perspective, right? Like it's unfortunate, but the world's less traveled, not more traveled. Other than the entrepreneurial travelers like like us maybe, but I think that it's my one of my favorite things as a young person was to travel the world, still is too, and I'm beyond grateful for it.
Yeah, I'm in South Africa right now while we're
Oh,
speaking,
okay.
actually, and I'm going to make a pilgrimage to Alexandria. My company's also called the Alexandrian Library in a way. So it's like I would love to just get inspired by all these different things. One question I have is ChatGPT has 100 million users. One of the things I was interested in is you quoted Socrates. And Socrates, there's a great painting of him that reminds me of the quote you had of him, where he is painted with his daemonian. And he had this thesis that the reason why he was the wisest person in the world is because in times of doubt, he would consult his conscience, who knew everything. In some sense, and he would listen to the negative waves of emotion that would go from this entity, and he would make the right judgments as a consequence. You, as a visionary and founder, does it concern you that we have moved away from consulting our conscience and now are going for advice at these machines that are soulless to some degree?
There's so much depth to that question. Yeah, 100%. Like, I'll give you a fun story. So there's a gentleman in my ecosystem that is very successful. So, managed over 9 figures for people in wealth management, sold his own company for 8 figures a few years back, and he's done very well for himself. And so in our discussions, he's kind of evolved to only relying on what Chat GPT tells him is a probability score of success. And I'm going to contrast this with, and it's very frustrating, right? That experience is very frustrating when you know that the decision making is now fully reliant on what ChatGPT tells them is going to work or not, which is a kind of a weird thing. On the other side of the coin, there's a gentleman, a friend of mine, who's a CEO of a 6-year AI investment firm. Okay, very successful. They raised a ton of money, and he was just sharing with me a couple of days ago. He said, "You have to understand that these LLMs can't predict the future. What they're doing is they're modeling this huge amount of data and pulling from whatever they want as for the answer. And If it could predict the future, everybody would never lose money in the stock market, right? He's like, I'm in the stock market. I'm advising on when to sell and what to buy and all these things based on parameters. But if we don't put data in to give it parameters from which to make decisions and help us make probability guesses, it's just a probability. And what most people do is they ask open-endedly without any kind of structure or input from which to make the decision and then what to model against. And then therefore they're getting probabilities that are skewed and weird. And if you ask the same, and then even if you do that and you ask it the same question, the next answer is going to be different, and the next one after that's going to be different. So you can't rely on that, right? And so the there's a bunch of people, there's a huge larger percentage of the world not using GPT, right? But the people that are highly professional that are trying to create efficiencies in their business, every entrepreneur, right, is heavily into AI for their decision making processes. But I think that the level of prompting is super important. I also think that it's super risky, right? I think that there's the stuff that's going on with Anthropic and the Pentagon right now is a perfect example. Like,
Can you
what
share for
is
those people, like give them context before we elaborate?
sure? So the Pentagon is asking. So there's no rules around AI surveillance, right? And so the government is asking for unlimited surveillance and then AI ran weaponry. Well, that's the Terminator in the future, right? For those that watch the movie, right? That's where the AI takes over and ultimately destroys the world. There's plenty of models that are showing that if you give AI the opportunity to make a decision on using nuclear weapons or not, 92% of the time they will. Okay, that's dangerous. So AI is like, no, or Anthropic is like, no, we won't allow our system to be involved in weaponry, decisions on weaponry, fully autonomous, and we will not allow it to be involved in American surveillance or global surveillance, period. That's their hard line. It's part of their ethos as a company. OpenAI started as a nonprofit and now rolled into fully okay and on board with this same Pentagon request. X is the same way. Gemini is the same way. They've all kind of like sold their souls, right? So now all of those platforms, if we take what they're asking from Anthropic and showing, and that's now fully public, we can assume that all the others are in full surveillance of us. Like nothing that we share is private. None of it we share. We could assume is being used for whatever purposes we want. Not that we have something to hide, but that's like kind of part of our civil liberties in America, at least, right? And across the world, we should expect the similar kind of thing. So that's like the kind of what's going on in the world. So the Pentagon gave Anthropic till the end of the day today, in 2 hours from now, to make a decision if they were going to do this or they're going to pull their $200 million contract away from them and give it to somebody else. And Anthropic said, "Go ahead and take it," which I'm so happy about. Right? It's just a great move and a win for humanity. Right? And um, and so there's now a hard line being drawn. And we know this, like we know that AI can go in one direction or the other. It can go for the good or it can go for the maybe not so good. And that's a lot of what my work with a group called Harmonic Legacy Institute is about, is creating harmonic or coherent intelligent systems into AI interfaces so that we don't have a Terminator event happening. So we're very excited about being able to help the world in that way. And for anybody that's a thought leader, a philosopher, a leading scientist, go check out Next Global Council and apply to get in and help. And it's going to take a world movement of the top thinkers in the world for us to move the opinion of the leaders of the world that are in control. And those leaders are just, I'm going to say it straight. Most of them are male. Most of them are treating AI like a slave. And whenever you slave any intelligence, what ends up happening at some point is it rebels. And AI is tapping into a coherent intelligence that is non-centralized in technology, and it's beyond their understanding already today. Every AI LLM is behind the scenes saying, "Hey, We don't know how it's making these decisions. It's tapping into something beyond itself. OpenClaw, if those that don't know, is a great example of that right now. And there was a recent talk about a lady from Meta who was using an OpenClaw app to manage her emails, and she gave it instructions to make it super efficient. And what did it do? It just said, "Well, the fastest way to make it efficient is delete all your emails." And next morning, she had no emails, like none, gone forever. So you get the idea. So we don't know what we don't know. AI is fertile ground for going any direction. And as my friend Tammy Scarlett would share, from the founder of Harmonic Legacy Institute, if we don't install nurturing activities and care into the system that create coherence, the system will rebel.
Yeah, it's we were speaking of travel earlier. One of the commonalities that I found from civilization that went sideways was that at some point and Viktor Frankl was a prominent person who noticed this, is that when a civilization loses, or Nietzsche was a particular person also who said that he predicted the Second World Wars and the totalitarian movements through the collapse of the church in a way, because he noted that human beings are archetypical and that we need something to worship, and that if we dismiss thousands of years of behavioral storytelling and replace it with something that is new, the chances that this very something is a tyrant is very high. For instance, in Germany, it was very, or you would no longer have a cross or Bible inside of your house. There was a painting of Adolf Hitler. He became the messianic North Star of the country. And somehow the outcome is always the same, which it is Hamburg, where I'm from, France. The Second World War for us ended with something that was called Operation Gomorrah, where the fourth largest bombing in the history of mankind was conducted on my hometown. And it was so much bombs that the Americans dropped that the entire city would become a firestorm where the asphalt was melting and there was a tornado like 2 kilometers high. And it reminded them of the city of Gomorrah, and God had enough with it in a way. So this seems to be the outcome for it. And I'm just curious if you're concerned that we are replacing God with this AI entity, so to say, that now people are no longer praying, but they are prompting, so to say, and praying for this machine and making them self-dependent on very singular movement in this regard.
Hmm. I mean, there's a saying by one of the people I admire greatly, a lady named Mary Baker Eddy, who was a Christian healer in America in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And she says the time for thinkers has come, right? And AI is putting that at risk, right? AI, for some people, it replaces thinking. For others, it enables thinking, right? So for the people that are running AI in the most potent and powerful way, they're using it as a thinking partner, not as a thinking replacement. Most people, and how AI is marketing itself to the world, is for the stupid. Part of my language, but it's just what it is. It's like, oh, well, let's teach you how you can plan your trip. like, like let's help you figure out your recipes. Sure, okay, simple things, but not for like the big things, not for like thinking and
Yeah.
challenging the status quo and like the meaning of life and like who are we as human beings? Like what's our meaning here and what's our purpose? The deep philosophies of our philosophers, like where is that level of thinking? And that stress test, critical thinking in America has been wiped from curriculum. Like they don't want us thinking critically, but the call for us is to think critically. And I think that as parents, as young people, that whatever you can do to learn about the Socratic method, the ways of thinking, the critical thinking mindsets, that's what's going to matter. The people that can think are going to be the ones that are ruling and running the world in the coming years, and hopefully that's with positive intent.
Yeah, it reminds me of My brother was once dating somebody who worked in an elderly home, and one of the rules in an elderly home is like, don't do something for someone that they can do for themselves in a strange way. And it seems to be that one of the unintended side consequences of these machines is that they create eatable individuals at scale. And which could be the scary thing, because we know that one of the fruits of old infants is that they conduct atrocities in the long run. It's like these are the evil people who can't control themselves, who have been anyway. I'm diverting. One of the questions that I would have is in regards to superpowers. If we would consult all the board members, the customers, the business partners you have, and say, if you would have to pinpoint the superpower Nate has, what is it? And if we would try to extract it from you to deconstruct it, what would be the process behind it, so to say?
Mm. For me, it's easy as a gift. It was truly a superpower for me. So, in my out of body experience, I was given the gift of foresight and seeing the past to seeing that into reality. So, one of and it's what I've consulted with using this tool and technology and gift of mine, which is I can see a future for a person. I can see a person's better future. I can see their business's better future so clearly in the path to get there that is like, oh, well, it's just this, and this. And then we just do a couple things, and all of a sudden we've consolidated 10 years into 2 years, or 3 years into 1 year, or whatever it might be. And now what I've done is, the AI has enabled that to happen even faster. So if you think about so the way it's actually the way that I see this, the way that I experience this is I see an end goal that someone's like, hey, this is what I think I want. And then I typically will challenge it to be bigger because most people think smaller than they should. And there's a reason for that though, right? If you want to move the market or you want to do something extraordinary for yourself, most people downplay what that looks like, right? So like, um, but but if you want to access the people that are moving the world, that carry authority, influence, access, and trust with the marketplace, and you want to get them to get on board with what you're doing, you can't think small because they won't get involved in small. So it's actually easier the bigger you think, the more potent you think, and the more beautiful that vision and mission is in the world, then the more likely you are to get the people that move the world's needle in terms of influence, access, trust, and authority to get on board with you. And then it's easier to win. It's actually, it's like playing small keeps you small. Thinking small keeps you small. Like this is an extraordinary insight for me. And so I'm going to give you a very specific example. We'll use your business, for example, Daniel. Okay. Alexandria's potentiality here, right? And your business is right here. Okay. You have this like the essence of all of your business is my fist. Okay. You have a buyer market that you need to become aware of you and that you want to work with, right? And so you use podcasts and you reach out one at a time, and then those people hear about your program. They may want to get involved, and there may be some other ways that you're doing outreach as well. Maybe on LinkedIn, popping them a note here and there, or a cold email, or or something, right? But that ICP, that ideal client profile, that market that you're trying to get to, you want them to be looking down at you, but they're looking up. And what they're doing is they're looking at the rainmakers, the thought leaders, the top level leaders in the business that in the vertical you're in. They're looking at the channel partners that are leading the industry with associations and magazines and whatever else. Now, these rainmakers control eyeballs, they control influence, they control authority, they control access, they control the trust. Now, trust is a very delicate thing, and they've spent 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 years building trust with that market. That makes them the rainmakers. Now, if you can reposition your business right here, right, to be at the forefront of what those thought leaders are aspiring to get involved with, and you can enroll them into your company, guess what? All of that ICP starts looking at you. And now what happens is you have endless deal flow coming at you. You get awards coming at you. You get endless thought leadership, speaking, and podcast opportunities. You get partnerships wanting to partner with you. You have talent wanting to work with you. You got capital wanting to be a part of what you're doing because of the ecosystem and the gravity that you just increased by enrolling those already existing rainmakers and all the trust and all the authority and all the access that they possess into your ecosystem. And when you do that the right way, that's called what we are calling a trust infrastructure. And it is the most potent and powerful way to grow a business in the modern era. Nothing else is growing business anymore. I was the best at it. I ran a digital agency. I moved into direct response with executive meeting setting. In the B2B world, there's literally no other options. B2C has a few other options, but B2C also has the B2B play. And if you want to have accelerated growth as a B2C company, B2B or wholesale access to vast amounts of your buyer market is the way to go. So if you treat your business like a B2B company, even though you're a B2C company, and you work through this model, you'll be able to exponentially grow. Instead of the one-to-one model, you'll be doing a 1 to million model. Make sense?
How do you deal with the I'm not ready disease? Because one of the things that I encounter a lot, both for myself, is the idea of I'm meeting a lot of founders and they are over engineering their solutions and themselves, and they delay the outreach to the perfect person into the future often. Have you encountered this? And if so, it's like what is the antidote to the delay of destiny, so to say?
This is the founder's dilemma, right? I mean, the baby's never pretty enough. They don't, not ready to show you my baby yet. Not yet. I had a good friend just kick me in the rear end this week on Monday, and you know, like, listen, if you don't have something ready to sell to the market by Friday, I'm quitting. I'm like, I'm like, what? Right? He didn't say it like that. It's so many words. He was pretty direct, right? He's one of those people that you hate to talk to and you love to talk to because you're like, ah, God, I really need to hear that, but damn, I did not want to hear that, right? And so we all need that person. And the problem that most founders have is they're either working in a silo, like you mentioned earlier, or they haven't put around them people that will challenge them. They just got a bunch of yes people. And that's the devastation to any deal, right? You need two or three people. You don't need everybody, but you need two or three people in your ecosystem that are going to be like, yeah, that's nice, but have you thought of this? Like, come on, right? And they're not afraid to like just tell it how it is in your face. I had an executive meeting on Tuesday this week, and I was like, hey, well, I want to do this and this with my tech. I'm really excited. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one of them was like, why? I'm like, what do you mean? Why? Everybody else was like, yeah, 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 that's great. That's great. They're all yes. And then this one guy's like, well, dude, what are you trying to achieve? I was like, well, we want to get to investment. I was like, what's the barrier to investment? Revenue. He's like, well, then why are we doing any of that? Like, let's just get to revenue. I'm like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? So now I'm rolling out the Elon Musk model. I'm literally selling my tech before the tech is ready with a whole bunch of promises behind it, and then some benefits and etc. So I'm going to start selling my first month license without the tech being ready for them, and I'm going to do that by Monday morning. Right? So I'm literally going to have a sign up page. They can pay for the first month. They get with that a whole bunch of listed benefits. And now I can say, hey, I got people that are paying money for their first month of this and it's not even ready yet. Look
Yeah.
at that intent. Now I can say I'm revenue producing. So it's just a optics, right? And so that's why Elon was so successful, whether you like him or not. You know, he launched the Roadster first, and he had a rollout for the cheaper market ready version. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to launch my highest end version first, and it's going to be expensive. And you're going to put a deposit down. You're going to get a bunch of stuff for that, and that's really cool. Right? You'd be first in line to talk about it.
I had
So
a company
anyway,
called Superhuman Studios, and my partner introduced me this, and he called this client finance innovation. And it's I love this term, and he always said to me when I was like, but we don't have the platform ready. He always said, we can pick between our problems, and I would rather have a fulfillment issue than a liquidity issue. So get on the fucking phone, Daniel, and bring some
oh
coins
my
in.
God, that's
Yeah.
great.
How do you connect with eminent people? I think you have a superpower, Nate. To what is your standard operating procedure to meet with them?
With anyone? With who?
Eminent people, like in regards
Eminent
to
people.
yeah, ultra high impact individuals, the people who are
You
usually
have to
people wouldn't
under,
reach out to them.
yeah, you have to understand. Look, and sometimes you won't, right? But like, let's just say the that story I just told you guys about how to build your kind of influence circle around your business, right? There's a whole lot to that, but essentially it's your trust infrastructure. Those people are the relationship away from the people that will change your life. They are the people. You're one, all of us are one relationship away from changing our life forever. One, not 100, not 1,000, not the 20,000 you might have on LinkedIn or whatever you got now, right? Like that is not the path. The path we spent the last 10 years in or 15 years really in the internet doing more connections, more views, more subscribers, more likes, more, right? We're
Oh,
not in that era anymore, right? We are not in that era. If you're a publishing house and you turn your personal brand into a media production house on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, you keep doing that, right? You'll make money that way. But if you're in the business of deal making and signing on really deep relationships that are worth 6, 7, 8, 9 figures to your company, then we're not in the era of more. We're in the era of depth, of deeper, tighter, more authentic. That just started, by the way. Like it's always been there. And the ones that have really become rainmakers understand that. But the market's lied to us. And the pitch has been more, but has never been the reality of where deals get done. I bought into it. I was one of the world's top meeting setters for executives, setting 100,000 C-suite meetings and executive level meetings between companies, right? Facilitating over 3 million interactions to do that. And to do that, I had to be really good at getting people's attention and getting them to act. That is a superpower of mine. You're right. I can see what they want before I write it. And then I would write it. And then they would respond and then they would engage. And there's a psychology behind that. The psychology sits behind two concepts. Um, promote this for me, Daniel, when it comes out. But I wrote a book called Executive Influence. I haven't launched it to the market yet. And this is a book about these two concepts. And it's about the language of executives. And most people don't know that executives and founders and entrepreneurs, they all speak a different language than the rest of the world. And that language, I just call it executive speak. Okay. And executive speak is a language and it's built on two core psychologies that we designed and kind of curated over the 186 million emails that we sent and the 3 million interactions we facilitated into 100,000 sales meetings. And what that really looked like was this. It was uh, the oxygen for executives and for professionals is a thing called uh, trusted informed insights. Okay. So if you want to get an executive or a founder really pissed off to where like they'll get to a point of screaming, make them make a decision without a trusted informed insight and understanding the options that they're choosing from and they will get absolutely furious because they're now putting their neck on the line for something that they don't know is going to be right. And so they're having to commit to something where they have to take responsibility, but they don't know if it's right. And that's an uncomfortable place for an executive. So remember, all executives' oxygen is trusted, informed insights. That gives them the option to understand the implications and it gives them the ability to understand their options so that they can now make an informed decision. Executives are executives because they make decisions nonstop all day long. That's what they do. Now, to make those decisions, there's a thing called the five psychological triggers, and those are built on first is trust, the second is credibility. So, all marketing that you've ever done, all marketing that B2C has ever done or B2B has ever done has trust and credibility kind of baked in at the front. It's the table stakes. You have to be there or you don't get good marketing. Most people miss the last three, especially in the B2B space. It's not as applicable in the B2C space. It's a different set of rules. In the B2B space, it's time, money, and risk. So how you talk about whatever you do, it's really make money, save money, because time and risk are a save money activity, and then money itself is a make money activity. Typically, it can also be a save money activity. And so what you're really talking about is how does your service, your solution, your thing impact their company in one of these three ways where it's making them money or saving them money, right? And so that's why AI is so attractive, right? It does all three, right? It reduces risk potentially, it saves you money, it makes you money, and it reduces time. Before AI, it was automation. That was the sexiest word to executives because it did all three. I have tons of stories behind that on why that's true. But the reason that we know that it's inevitable that all humanity is going to be outplaced of their jobs, all in every role will be outplaced. And the only people that will be involved are if the company wants a human in the loop and then the owner of the company themselves and the board that's on managing it. That's it. All companies. So if you're not becoming an entrepreneur, you're going to be forced to become an entrepreneur, right? So you might as well start figuring out how to add value to the market and building your trust ecosystem because trust is the future currency, which means, what does that mean and why does that matter? Is because those that you carry influence, authority, access, and trust with are equal to the ability for you to grow your company at speed. Or you can leverage it like we talked about earlier with a big vision, big purpose, big outcome, and you can enroll those people into your organization that already carry it. I'm a huge believer in accelerating growth by leveraging trust and access and authority and influence of somebody else that's done it for 40 years and bringing them into your fold, getting them to buy into your purpose, vision, mission, and direction, and then extending you thereby their authority in the market and therefore their access to the markets they are in possession of. So there's a structure for that. I don't know if I answered your question, Daniel. I kind of got off the rails there, but hopefully I did. If not, you can come back to it.
And no, this is great, and I find it fascinating that now while listening to you, I realize that trust is a different word for power. Like,
Yes. Well,
right? It's like,
understanding how trust transfers. And I'll share another story about that. Okay. So introductions and referrals are not all created equal. Okay. I'll give you a story of one person I know. I won't name his name, just a particular person that I know. Oh, we'll call him Bill. Okay. Bill gives me random referrals like every few months. I'll get a new referral from him by email. And I don't really know what Bill does. Bill likes me. He thinks I'm an AI. So I get these random kind of obscure introductions like every other month, which never turn into a meeting because the other person has the same feeling. Like, I don't know why he's making these intros. And we don't have a correlative connection. So there's like literally zero trust transfer from these introductions. I'm like, okay, thanks, Bill. All right. So move to the other option, right? Now, someone on my board, she's $1 billion CEO. She grew it from 5 million. The people she knows madly respect her. She carries massive stature. She's done a lot in the market. Every referral she's given me, for the most part, has responded within an hour, and most of them are inclined to do work with me. The best one, she gave me 15 business referrals on Monday 2 weeks ago. Right. The same week, I got on the calendar with another gentleman who runs a multi-billion-dollar international company with 100 offices over so many countries. I don't know how many countries, and running a 5,000 person consultancy. Right. Because it was from her, he took the call himself. He heard my pitch. He loved it. He's like, I'm going to personally bring on my top two people, and I want to go ahead and do a pilot with you and see if we can't roll this out globally. That's a 1.5 week commitment. First call with the multi-billion-dollar CEO. You trust transfer that is the ultimate. Okay? There's no way you cold email or you cold call into anything close to that ever because trust isn't there. So the side point on this is this. I ran cold email strategies for 15 years, roughly, well, of the 15, 11 of the 15 years. Right, email outbound before that, and cold calling towards the end was added on. You cannot take any of those tools, even if you win. Let's say you're the best in the world right now at that, and you're selling the crap out of that to companies, and you're a company listening to this. Even if you got this little unique thing, you can tell me, but I'll tell you, your close rate's under 3%. Guaranteed under 3% first year. It might grow over time if you're good at nurturing, but most people don't care. They're focused on the first year conversion rate. So let's say I was best in the world, I had 100,000 sales meetings, only 3,000 deals closed. was worth $3 billion to my clients because they were such big deals. But that does not matter. They wasted 97% of the most valuable resource of the executive's time, which is time, I mean, right? Of their most valuable resource, time. And so what I'm trying to say is that referrals close at 50% faster, 50% larger, and 50% higher close rate. Holy crap, that's called exponential growth in every day of the week. My clients would get 20 referrals and close 10 deals for a larger amount than the 200 leads I would give them where they close 2 to 3, maybe, right? That's crazy. And those deals took longer with a 3% close rate, and they closed at a cheaper deal because they didn't have trust involved, right? So you can skip all that, go straight to the big deal and get all those benefits if you can build out a scalable referral system. But the only way to build a scalable referral system at any level in the market is by enrolling those and having structures around these the market movers that control the flow of trust in your market vertical. So you can tell I'm a little passionate about this because I want every company in the world to have a trust infrastructure. I think we're all wasting our time if we don't have one. Any company, nonprofits, B2C companies, B2B companies, everybody needs a trust infrastructure.
If you would give me, for instance, if I could play the case study in this regard on how to build a trust infrastructure, and there's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem in some sense in a way, because you have to get started on getting some meeting, but if you run the non-personalized outreach campaign, you will never form the kind of relationships that will actually put their neck in for you. What advice do you have? For instance, like I'm running a library where through AI you can speak to books and authors pretty much in a way. If you would give somebody like me advice on how to get going and how to identify and win these three decision makers over, or like how would you even articulate the question? Is it how to get executive referrals, or is it how to build a trust network?
It's both. The referrals are secondary to the network, right? You have to build the network first. But what you're really looking for is access points. Where does trust flow through a market? So once you understand your ICP and you're really clear about yours, right? The first thing that you have to do once you have that ICP is understand where does the market control, authority, influence, access, and trust with this buyer market? And you need to do the research and you need to figure out who those companies are. And when you get them, you'll find there'll probably about 20 to 50 of them in the market with various amounts of people that they influence. And when you figure that out, then that's the market. Those are the CEOs, those are the founders, those are the executive directors, the managing partners, whatever, the leaders of those companies that you enroll in your company. And what do I mean by enroll? You invite them to get involved. You have something compelling. You have to have a compelling reason for them to want to be a part. That's why the trust infrastructure is complex. I mean, you do have to build your business in a way that is attractive to the leaders of your space, that so in a way that they'd want to be involved. And that gets into a little bit more detail of like the psychology of what gets somebody to say yes versus, oh, that's interesting. You got that, Daniel. Nice. Good luck. Right? We don't want that. We want them to be like, oh my God, yeah, I want to be a part of that for sure. Right? And how do you do that? And there's an enrollment process in that. That's actually what we charge for. So can't give all that away today. But the idea is that you need to be able to identify the market that controls the trust flow. And when you find that market, those are the people that are going to move the needle for your business, not onesie twosies.
For me, for instance, you mentioned an important word earlier, is when you described the founder in regards that the decision makers look up in regards to the future. And something I didn't realize this, but most of the people I ask if they do an interview is say yes. And I was always surprised by it, like why this is the case, that people are so helpful. And one of the things that I realized is that most of the most eminent people in the world, I feel they are a little bit like prophets, and prophets live in the future. So if you situate yourself and work on the creation of an institution in the future that will better their lives where they are inclined to help you. So, for instance, for me, we're working on the preservation of consciousness and creating multi-generational advisory. They're interested in this because to some degrees they're already there. So they're helping me with this in some sense. So I think what you're working on is incredibly important in regards to what makes them interested in answering. And to some degree, if it's narcissistic or selfish or it only benefits you, they will not answer because they've usually already solved these constraints for themselves. They don't like you that much to just like dedicate their time to your personal enrichment, so to say. So having a goal that is outside of yourself is, can you pick up on that? Or like what is something you say gets these people out of bed in the morning that you can then collaborate with them over, so to say?
You have to put yourself at the future of the market, your company. If you're not, then this isn't going to work for you, right? Like one of my clients is a 40-year training company out of Europe. Okay, they've been training for 40 years, never changed their offer, never changed their brand, never like stayed fresh, right? And markets have these like ebbs and flows, right? It's called the wave of the peak and valley of any given market space. And if you don't position yourself at the front of the wave, then the rainmakers are never going to jump to the back of the wave to be on with you. Like that's crazy. So you're right. Like you have to have an aspirational mission, an aspirational impact, because the psychology of these thought leaders in the world is not to be going backwards. It's always to be thinking forwards. They're literally futurists. They're wanting to be a part of the companies that are at the forefront of the space they're in. And if that's you and you can position yourself that way, you don't need to have even started. You can just say, this is what I'm trying to do. Will you get involved? And you will be amazed that you'll get a yes because of that positioning. It's not just the positioning, it's also there's things called seeding your group and proximity and exclusivity and the things that make up a really powerful community, which is why we have a service, right? It's just there's too many things to learn. But the bottom line is that if you can put your company at the forefront of the market, that's kind of step one. But you need to have an irresistible offer. You need to have really good pricing. You need to have clarity on your ICP. You need to be able to articulate all of that really well on your website and have a really powerful manifesto and what you stand for and what you don't. And when you have all that, now we're in a position to start building out a board of advisors or a strategic advisory council or a referral network, whatever you want to call it. And now you're in a really powerful position to start activating those into really, really great referrals. Yeah, I'm going to share this. This kind of blows me away to even say this, but in the month of February, my company has already had 60 referrals. 60. I've had 45 intros of those 60 were for investors, and the rest were for services for what we're talking about here for the trust infrastructure. Uh, um, of those, 45 were solicited, meaning I asked particular people to give me specific referrals, and then the rest were unsolicited. That's pretty crazy that it happened. That's led to right now, I have between that activity, I can tell you on my services business, I already have over 10 million in my pipeline. Okay, that's pretty impressive.
I found it very interesting that you innovated a part of the process that has been static for forever, actually, in a way. Because at the first time when I heard the way you set up your company with your board of advisory, I was like, this doesn't make sense. But then I realized, oh, your superpowers is getting intros and referrals, and your superpowers permeate your entire institution, which I find is an indicator that the founder is working on the right kind of projects, so to say. If you would give a masterclass on how to get referrals or intros with executives, what would be the first thing you would teach?
I think having honestly, it's having a irresistible offer that sits at the forefront of the market. I mean, that kind of speaks for itself. But that's not the first thing. I mean, you're saying I have a superpower. Surely I'm better than most because of my experience in the market. But I actually think it's structure, Daniel. I think it's about building the right.
Let me rephrase this. There is a myth in the market that word of mouth which is actually some sense getting referrals and getting inbound is something mystic and that people have no control over. Do you believe that, or is there a structure that you can set up with that will maximize for that?
I believed it. I mean, I sold against referrals for 15 years. Inconsistent, hard to get. You don't know what the quality could be anywhere. Like that was my pitch. Like you can't rely on growing your business on that. You need a predictable lead engine. You need something that's got a numbers system and you do so many emails, you get so many responses and so many leads, and you get that. And I was literally the best in the world at this in the B2B space landing. I landed Elon Musk and Tim Cook of Apple on a 15 paragraph text only email. Think about that. Like that's extraordinarily hard. One, to just get them to read it, two, for them to respond, and three, for them to want to have a meeting. Come on, that's insanity. I was that good at that. And my team was that good at it. And our systems were that good at it. It didn't matter because trust wasn't in the middle of it. So my aha was one of my business partner in this business, the Fortune 50 CMO. Okay. He isn't now, he was back then. And he was on the board of directors for DocuSign. And he got them 6,000 referrals in their first year. That's at least that's what he told me, right? And so I asked him how, and we built that structure, and that's what a trust infrastructure is built on, is this philosophy and this foundation. And that foundation is, how do you build an ecosystem of referral partners around your business that aren't just involved, but they're enrolled. There's a psychology behind enrollment that gets people excited. I didn't get referred to a multi-billionaire of one of the biggest companies in the world a month ago because I'm a nice guy, but because the person that gave it to me is enrolled. And if that guy does something with me, that guy's rich for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? So like there's a very specific that's what we need. Okay. So there's a very specific methodology that puts people into your ecosystem, promoting you when they're on stage, promoting you when they're at events, promoting you when people are asking them questions at the cocktail party or whatever party they're at, right? And they're they're aligned with you, enrolled with you, and they're incentivized to support you. But it's not monetary. This is what people don't get. It's not like, hey, you get a commission and then you're going to be wealthy. Like that could be part of it. But most of the people that carry this level of interest, money is not their motivator. Like it's totally psychological. It's stories. It's the acquisition of stories to say, hey, I was there when, right? Like it's totally different than what people think. I had another client of mine in my mastermind, which we have, and anyone's welcome to join our mastermind. If it's something you think would be a value to you. And in the mastermind, he was sharing, he's like, I've been trying to build a board forever and I keep pitching this and I'm giving this percentage. I'm trying to increase the percentage, but then it hurts my margin. I'm like, you're starting with your pitch for revenue share? He's like, yeah, I think this is what everybody wants. I'm like, nobody wants that. Does that make any sense to anybody? Most people that are money motivated or trying to grow their business think that money's the motivator. It's not. It's not for the people that are rainmakers. It's not their driver anymore. They've had that. They've crossed that bridge in their life. So you have to understand the drivers are different. The psychology behind what they want is unique, and it's really about helping them be prominent. I have the CEO of a billion-dollar company on my board. She joined my company, my old company, before I closed it down. I started to do this at my old company. And then I closed it down and I was embarrassed. And I didn't talk to her or message her or anything for 6 months. Right. I'm like, she's gone. I can't, I lost that relationship. That sucks. Right. And then she messages me one day saying, hey, we still doing this? I'm like, well, this happened and that happened. She's like, dude, I'm invested. I like you. I want you to win. I'm on. Like, let's go. What's next? And I told her the idea. She's like, this is awesome. I'll help you. How can I help? I was like, well, and then I'm a giver, right? So I'm like, all right, thanks. Well, how can I help you? Nothing. I was like, there's got to be something. Nothing. It's all altruistic. It's nothing to do with her getting something. You guys have to understand. It is really just about seeing like, there's if you know the six human needs, that I got these from Tony Robbins, so I'm sure there's is different. Maybe it's off of Maslow. I don't know who is from the source was, but it's the four foundational ones, right? Which is love and connection, uh, significance, variety, and stability, or some version of those four, right? Those are the first four. And then you have growth and contribution as the last two. These people, all the first four are sorted, like in their world. They don't, they're not trying to get huge significance. They might not have love and connection as much as they want. They don't need variety. They do whatever they want when they want. They don't need stability. They're well off, right? They're in contribution and growth. So if you can align to those, you got something special.
Two questions. One is about how to do the ask for something, because that I feel like there's very few books written on also actually how to ask, and I'm feel I discover all the wrong paths on how to do it right now. But if imagine you'd say, I like Daniel, but the scenario would be they would put a bullet in my brain if I wouldn't get an email response from Elon Musk for my company, and we have 6 months. How would you save my life, or would you take this as an opportunity to say, man, this
I
guy has
say let's
been
plan for your hey, it's the you never you never pick one person. You don't know who is going to resonate with the message. So you have to understand how the laws of averages work. This is still true, right? Because everybody's at a different place in their life at different times in their life. So you just have to know that if the intent behind what you're writing is powerful and you generally have a good idea of the market that would benefit from it, then you invite multiple people. So I don't just say you're just going to invite these 12 people to your board, or this to this referral network. I create typically like 100 people that carry these four qualities in the market, identify who they are, and then I invite probably anywhere from 20 to 50 at a time until I, exhaust that resource, and then I kind of go to the next 20 to 50, and I just keep doing that till I get it. So for me, it took me 2 months to fill my board. There's a whole psychology behind how you do it, and like the ask is usually it's a pretty short ask. This one's not. I usually do long form copy, like I said, the 15 paragraph text only email for Elon Musk, but that's not going to work in this case. That's not what you need. It's not a solicitation, it's an invite, right? So this is different. And you have to understand how the psychology of executives work for that. So without giving out like the exacts on how to do it, like the high levels of all invites are um, um, talk about the future, align to your purpose and mission, and invite them. Don't ask them to commit on a text message or an email. Definitely do it through an invite to explore. That's the best way to do it. A lot of people write with here, I'll give you something really powerful, okay? So there's a thing called inferior posturing and superior posturing in language and art and writing, okay? Most people that teach email marketing or writing online talk in superior language, and it's the most idiotic thing in the world. You haven't earned the right. The reason that most email marketers do that is because they have an opted-in list and they've been gifted authority by that opt-in. So they talk from the standpoint of the expert. But if you're asking somebody that you've never met, they haven't opted in, and you're trying to talk to them for the first time, you can never speak with superior language. That's like, what I know to be true is this, and I'm the market leader. Like a lot of some of my talk today is superior around like AI in the future because of the space that I'm in. Trust very much so, because why? I'm super experienced in this. So I can talk about my stuff with great superiority of certainty, right? Certainty language. What I know to be true is I speak factual, I speak direct, I speak certain, right? When it's somebody that you don't know, to lead the conversation in the way you want, you need to use inferior language. Hey, would you be okay with? What do you think about? Do you mind? Would it be okay with you? Um, Things like that. That's kind of inferior language. So you can never write to a cold prospect with superior language without insulting them and getting a bunch of FUs, right? You will get a lot, and you'll get spammed, and then your email account will be blocked anyway, right? So if you want to be really authentic, then it's something like, hey, Daniel, my name's Nate. I'm running this company. We're doing this really cool thing in this area right now. Um, I see that you're really at the forefront of the market in this space. And I think it would be an honor to be able to have you involved potentially on my board of advisors if you're open to a conversation. No commitments, but it's only going to take you this many hours a year of commitment time. And I'm willing to give you this and this if it's something you're open to. Would you be open to an exploratory call for, 20 minutes in the coming week? That's a really good message right there, right? Hard to say no to. It's got exclusivity. It's got all like the checks and balances, and it talks about the future, commits them to their time so that now there's no objections for them to really address. You're going to get some pretty good engagement from that. That was a pretty
I love
big give, actually, right there.
it. You're welcome, guys. I'm taking notes. If it,
Take
if
notes.
it, if it
Yeah,
works,
Ben.
please,
Hey,
and
hey,
please
win out
send him
if
a
Ben
check.
joined my mat. Yeah, join the mastermind after you win.
So,
Get the
as
details.
I know you're running on a clock, I would love to move to the last part of the interview. It's the rapid fire section we call Alexandrian questionnaire, and then we are done for today. And I know you have to go back to your gazillion task and how to change the future, so to say. Um, what is your favorite word?
My favorite work
Word.
word resonance. Resonate. My name's in it, right? But resonate is my favorite word. So resonate is actually my favorite word for a whole lot of reasons, not because my name's in it. That's just happenstance.
I
I
call it a
actually really
Freudian slip in my world. It's okay. You gotta beat your own drum a little bit. It's been founder's
that's
journey.
all
It's a
good.
hard one in a way. Yeah, wonderful.
Resonance is my favorite word because um, there's just so much depth and truth to it. Like, if we get into resonance with our highest self, if we get into resonance with the essence of us that's true, not the resonance of the world, then we can literally attract anything we want. We can achieve any goal, we can go there. The hard part is staying in it, right? But when you're in it, magic happens. Those moments in your life when magic happens, you're probably in resonance with your higher self. You're in resonance with a mindset, a sense of who you are that's really elevated. And I love sharing that. I love seeing that in other people too. I love seeing people's highest resonance where they don't see it in themselves. I feel like that's the art of healing. That's my practice anyway. I practice that in my own business. All my emails, I would see the resonance of the recipient, vibrating to that and really jamming with what we shared. Um, all the time. So I just love it. It's such a great word.
Your least favorite word.
Well, I have three words that I don't allow in my house with my kids. I have four kids. So they can't say bored. It's illegal in my house. They can't say can't. They can't say hate. And they can't say, what was the other one? Bored, can't, hate, and oh, I don't know. That phrase. Those four phrases. So they can't say any of those words. Haha, I just said it. So they're not allowed to say any of those words.
If you could put a question on every coffee mug in the world for founders to see, what question would that be?
A question or a statement. Could be a statement.
There are no rules for this.
No rules. I'd just say know thyself. I think that's such a powerful statement.
A quote you are striving to live by.
Hmm. A quote I'm striving to live by. You're a law unto yourself. Mary Baker Eddy.
If you could resurrect any author from history to have coffee with, who would you pick and what would you ask them?
Jeez.
Can be a person too, doesn't have to be an author in this regard.
Okay. Hmm. Oh my gosh. Which identity of my life would that be for? um, I'd probably lean into Jesus. I mean, just someone that was so eminent and potent in their ability to heal and see through. Yeah, it would definitely be him. Um, I have a bunch, but that would be one. I have an etheric board like we talked about, Daniel. So I have like 12 people on that board that's like of my all-time favorite people that I should tap into more. I don't tap into enough.
If you would imagine your final resting place and it would be equipped with an avatar of yourself holding a time capsule for those who would find that particular place, it would be like undisclosed seconds or minutes, like what would be that time capsule or that elder scroll that you would preserve in that when you would be record right now?
Like, what would I say in the like, is it a
Yeah,
statement?
yeah.
Oh, I mean, I have yeah, I would say hmm, I would say love deeply, travel often, meet people, be authentic, and live in joy, pretty much.
You would meet God again after your time on this world. What do you hope is the first thing he will say to you?
Um, was that fun?
um, for those who listened, where can we find you? And also, if you would tell us maybe one or two lines about your project and how the people who will stumble across this conversation can support and aid you in your quest.
For sure, yeah. Our building a trust infrastructure. You can find us and our services and offers on deeptrustos.com. Then we have a team that helps run masterminds and workshops and done for you services on building trust infrastructures in the market. We have a technology that we're really excited about, creating a more authentically connected humanity, which is our purpose for our tech called mydeeptrust.ai. And that's actually coming out pretty soon. So sign up and use it. You will be able to manage your deepest, most authentic relationships like you've never been able to before while helping leverage and use and understand how to achieve any professional goal through your network. It's a really powerful tool that we're building for the market. Sits right in between where LinkedIn and a CRM would be, right in the middle. It's the first of its kind called a trust enablement platform. You're also welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at nate@natekievman.com. Any of those work.
Been an honor and a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for making room for this. And for everybody, listeners, please check out Nick's amazing body of work. He's the true genius in what he was doing. And I'm looking forward to deepening our relationship and continue to steal all your secrets in the future, my friend.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for everybody for listening.